Welcome in. Today we're going to talk about why you should potentially wait on taking Social Security. So we'll run through a hypothetical scenario that would make a case for why it makes sense to wait on Social Security until at least 67 and potentially all the way until 70. And if you haven't seen our Social Security 101 video, that gives you a 5-6 minute overview of what Social Security is, all of the different options, how it works, how it functions, the decisions to make, and the potential ins and outs with when you elect to take Social Security. All right, so this video, we're going to dive into a little bit more on tax planning and retirement planning and how your Social Security decision can affect other areas of your financial plan. So, big question, why would you wait? Why would it make sense to wait until at least 67 and potentially, why would it make sense to wait until 70? First things first, it makes a ton of sense. First reason is if you still have earned income after age 62 and before full retirement age. For most of you, that's 67. If you're 65 today, full retirement age might be 66 in several months. But let's look at this timeline here. Now, you can take Social Security anytime in between these ages. You don't have to pick 62 or 67. But the key thing I want you to know, you need to wait until 67 if you're going to have earned income, most likely, because you get penalized pretty steeply. Half of your Social Security check will be taken away if you make too much money. And the barrier is really low. So you don't have to make a ton of money in order to disqualify half of your Social Security check. Now that penalty goes away once you hit full retirement age. So that right there, big incentive. If you're going to still work and have some earned income, a big incentive to not take Social Security until at least full retirement age. Second reason is simply what's been covered several times by many people before, and that is just higher payouts. But I want to go a little bit more specific. You can not only receive more in Social Security benefits by waiting, but it also can really come into play in a beneficial way as almost an insurance policy. So what I mean is, if you are married and one spouse has higher earnings, higher Social Security benefit than the other spouse, well, the higher Social Security benefit, it can make a lot of sense to take that at 70. So let's say you've maxed out Social Security. Let's say your 70 benefit is about $4,000 a month, to pick a round number. In that case, the question you're asking when you wait until 67 or 70 is, how long do I have to live? How long does it take for a break even? Now, you need to live to be 80 or more in order for 67 to make sense. You need to live until at least 82 for 70 to make sense. And that's a simple calculation. That doesn't even take into account if you're taking Social Security early and investing it. So it doesn't even look into that. It's just a simple calculation on how long do you have to live in order to maximize the amount of dollars Social Security is sending you. Now, obviously, that's a higher payout if you live longer. It makes sense to wait until 70 on that simple calculation. But the reason I give that nuance if you're married is it can really, be a pretty likely event for an individual person to live to be 85. That's not a far-fetched scenario to live past 82. But when you're married, it's much more likely that at least one of you will live past 82. So if you have different Social Security benefits and one person has a higher benefit, well, if there's a reasonable chance that one of you will live past 82, that higher benefit is locked in. It is earned by that person, that one person waiting and taking it at age 70. So even if that higher earning spouse passes away early, the surviving spouse gets the benefit of that higher monthly amount. So higher payouts, especially if you're married. Now, number three we're going to look into, and this is all about tax planning. If you have the potential to do Roth conversions during years where you have no other income, it can really be an added benefit to wait on Social Security rather than take that income. So really, this is Roth conversions, and I would say it especially makes sense if you have pre-tax retirement assets over 2.5 or 3 million or so. And even if you have a mega IRA, let's say 6 to 10 million, even in that ballpark, it also it makes sense to delay and not have any other income during Social Security years. Let's map this out real quick. Your assets in retirement are either going to be categorized as non-retirement. So this might be a stock plan, restricted stock units that you've now earned, or it could just be a brokerage account, checking, savings account. And then you have IRA, pre-tax. So this could be 401k, pension, whatever we want to classify as pre-tax retirement assets. And then finally, we have Roth assets. So the reason I delineate for higher IRAs on Social Security planning is because if you have a substantially large IRA, well, one of your biggest threats in retirement and within your financial life is simply paying too much in taxes and giving away too much in income tax over the course of your life and then for the first 10 years after your life. And so when we think about lowering your lifetime tax rate, we really want to consider spending non-retirement assets first. So if we can spend those first, if living expenses can come from non-retirement brokerage assets, and let's say that can happen during this time period, and even here as well, all the way until 70, if you have enough to last. And the reason we want to pinpoint this is Roth conversions are most effective when you're doing them at the lowest tax brackets. So in other words, if you're still working and making a high income, it doesn't make sense to do a Roth conversion most likely because you're already in a high tax bracket. But when you retire, you're then going into a situation where you have no income. And so if we can support your living expenses from a source that does not trigger income tax, like checking, savings, brokerage accounts, an individual account with stock shares from your previous company, anything like that, well, those are subject to capital gains, not income tax. And so we can do some pretty neat things there, and that does not hurt our Roth conversion tax rate. So these years, this is when we have a lower income if you've already retired, and key point, it is before age 70 and before age 72. At age 72, if you have a substantial IRA, you have to start taking required minimum distributions. And those may not be a big deal at 72, but towards the end of your life, they are a big deal. Just under 4% at 72, but in your 90s and your late 80s, a much, much higher percentage. And that account has potentially continued to compound and grow over the decades. So how do we avoid those highest tax rates? Simply put, we need to not have taxable income if we can. So again, we are spending our brokerage assets, and that allows us to convert IRA to Roth. And the reason why we want no income, if possible, is your first, and let's get a little bit of real estate here. The reason we want no Social Security and really no income whatsoever is the tax brackets. Well, your first $25,000 and change, this is married filing joint, you have the standard deduction. That's right, a 0% tax rate. So the only way to do a Roth conversion without paying taxes on it is to convert at the 0% level. And we'll make sure we get the iPad sharing here. I think we've got it up now. All right, perfect. So tax rates right here. The $25,000, first $25,000 in income, that's the standard deduction. So that's not going to be taxed. Your next $20,000, so 25 to 45, that is at a 10% rate. And then it actually goes to about 108, 109 this year. That is at a 12% rate. Now above this mark, it goes all the way from 12% to 22, then 24, and then after 24, there's another big jump to 32%. So if you have 2.5, 3 million in IRA assets, it makes a lot of sense to do Roth conversions at these brackets, 0%, 10%, 12%. Really, really high impact. That has a massive impact on your lifetime tax rate. But if you are in higher tax brackets, again, if you're taking Social Security and Social Security is filling up at least these first two sections, you're not able to get the Roth conversion at those lower brackets. So not having Social Security for a few years to be able to hit Roth conversions at the lowest brackets, that can really be beneficial towards your lifetime tax rate. Now, last point we'll make here, as you see, big difference between 12% and 22%. And again, another big jump in our tax brackets from 22 to 24%. If you have a larger IRA, thinking 5 million, 6 million plus, you probably will want to consider going above and beyond this 12% number, and you really may need to target 22 and 24% as well. So that's why a lot of answers in financial planning are it depends, because when should you take Social Security? Well, it depends. It depends on a lot of things. Are you married? Are you single? How is your health? What's your longevity look like? What are your other assets? Do you have any non-retirement assets, or are all of your assets in pre-tax retirement plans? What is your lifetime tax rate? Are there things we can do to lower your lifetime tax rate? So all of those questions are used to figure out what is in your best interest. When should you take Social Security? But to make a hypothetical case for why someone should consider postponing, delaying Social Security until 67 or even 70, 3 reasons. If you're going to earn income before full retirement age, you should probably wait. Higher payouts, especially if you are married. And then lastly, if you have a lot of pre-tax retirement assets, Roth conversions are most strategic at lower tax brackets. No need to take Social Security and be taxed on that. Might as well take advantage of the lower brackets. So let us know if you have any other questions, and we'll do more of these.